Hello, everyone. I am Corey Harasha, and I am a humble transmitter of wholeness. And today I would like to talk about the meaning of love. So, love, in my opinion, has a lot to do with identity. And when you love someone, you're essentially including them as a part of your identity. So as you love a romantic partner, you begin seeing them as a part of yourself. If you love your child, you kind of care for them the same way you care for yourself. So when we expand our identity, it is an expression of love, of viewing something that at first appears external to us as a part of ourselves. And when we view someone or something as a part of ourselves, we begin to care, which is a big part of love. We care about what happens to them. So we all have this innate instinct to love ourselves. Like, we all care what happens to us. If you stub your toe, you're like, why did I stub my toe? That hurts so bad. And you care about fixing that pain, right? So if you love someone, when they are in pain, you almost view that as your pain. If your kid gets hurt, you feel that pain too because you love them. So it's kind of has to do with empathy a lot too. So if you love someone, you will empathize with them, you will feel what they feel, you will see things as they see it because they are a part of you. That's what love is. It's a connecting force that allows us to expand. And why is this important? Why is it important to think about love and the meaning of love? And why is it important to maybe strive to be more loving, to expand our identity? And I think it has to do with, one is like, what is real? So are we really separate? Or are we really interconnected? So if we are interconnected, that means that it is important what happens to other people because it influences me. And if we're all interconnected, really the identity should expand there because it logically follows that if something impacts someone else, then it will eventually impact me, that there's a identity connection there. So it's important to view this because it's true that our identity expands beyond ourselves, and that it's not just me as a separate body from everybody else, that only my body matters, no one else's body matters. But when you view it from a place of love, you begin feeling from all the bodies around you that what matters, what happens to them matters, and you begin caring about it. And as we all become more loving, we all begin identifying as not just one body but all the bodies, and we begin saying, hey, we're not just one body, maybe I'm the body of my family. That's kind of the first level of love. Can you love people in your family, like your parents, your siblings, your kids? That's maybe the first step of learning how to love. And then from there you may begin saying, well, hey, so what happens to my partner, what happens to my kids affects me, so I care about it, so I'm going to put in work and effort to improve their lives, and I know that will improve my life. But then you may take one step further out and say, okay, I not just love my family, but you may say I love my country, because if what happens in my country is definitely going to impact me, so I have to begin caring about everything that happens in my country or my city or my state. And so you start beginning not just loving your family, but realizing I'm not just my family, I'm also this country. So I need to care about this country or these higher structures. And then from there you may be going, oh, well, I need to care about my country because that impacts my family, which impacts me. But then what about what's greater than my country? And then you see, what about the whole human race? Because my country is influenced by these other countries, and there's people there that if they're struggling, it'll impact me. So if I want to get the whole system working better, I need to expand my identity not just for me, my family, my country, but the whole human race, and then if I care about the whole human race, it kind of helps everything flow in your life. And then from there you may say, what's beyond that? Well, what about the environment, or animals, or plants, and the earth, and then the solar system, and then the universe? And you keep expanding this identity beyond just your single body, because you realize that everything that happens anywhere across space and time directly influences you, because it's all interconnected. And this kind of expansion, eventually, if you get universal love, which is essentially you identify with everything, you care about everything matters to you, you can then begin, seeking God, which is like, God is the ultimate love of everything, and that is the highest you can go with love. So you may start as just like a selfish human, you only care about one body, and you can develop to love more and more and more until you can connect with God and begin loving everything, and trying to improve everything. It sounds like a big responsibility, but we all start small. It's all interconnected. So say you begin eating healthier, that's still influencing everything. You're not just impacting your life, you're impacting all the lives of everyone around you. If you break one bad habit, it helps, your whole culture break that habit, the whole humanity break that habit, the whole universe break that habit, because it's all interconnected. Another big aspect of love I wanted to touch on is appreciation. So as we all begin identifying as these higher structures of what's actually happening in this reality, another aspect is enjoying things that are happening. And the reason why you can enjoy it more when you have this more expanded identity is because you get this like higher perspective, where these little things that may matter so much to one body, you realize may not matter as much to the earth. If one human passes away, it's still significant, but in this bigger picture, thousands of years, millions of years, it's really not that so bad as we may think it is from our smaller perspective. And so we can just begin to appreciate everything that happens, because it's all part of this bigger story. And so if our identities, say you begin identifying with your family, you may think, well, I have this legacy for my kids. And then, if you pass away or something bad happens to you, you still have this identity in a sense that's living onward. Or your country, like, hey, I put in all this work to make this country really great. And that is something that you can just appreciate, all this work that you put in, and it survives your tiny perspective of being one body. Or the whole universe, you improved the whole universe, depending on your level of choice of identity. And I call it a choice because I think, tying back into my previous video about meaning, it is kind of subjective about what your identity is. Like, you can meaningly map identity differently. Most humans identify as one body, and they're learning how to love and expand beyond that. But as we expand beyond that, we can love everything and appreciate everything. And I kind of lost my train of thought there. And I can love that, and understand that, hey, I made a mistake, Corey made a mistake, but I can still appreciate the journey of talking to you right now. So yeah, that's how I view love. I also want to dive into some consequences of loving other people, expanding that identity. What does that look like in practice? If you truly believe these other people you're talking to are a part of yourself, how would you treat them? And so as part of patience, I think you be more kind too. Patience and kindness will go with that, because you realize that it's all a learning process. We're all here learning, and just like your kid, right? If you love your kid, you're not going to like get so angry at them all the time for being different. You're kind of patient with them to let them learn and grow. And you can do that with other people, kind of view them as that like aspects of yourself that are still learning and growing, and you can be patient and kind. And it's unlikely too that it would be desirable if you view something as a part of yourself to like get angry at it all the time, because that's not very helpful. And some people may get angry at themselves, but I think if you really wanted to optimally help yourself, you wouldn't get so angry. You'd be more kind to yourself, and we can do the same with other people. I think too, it's important to think about compassion. It ties into empathy, but just if people are suffering, we want to care about their suffering and want to help them. But another aspect of that too is respecting the free will of other people. So when you love someone, you want to help them, but you also don't want to control them. And there's kind of this fine line between the two, because when you're helping somebody, you're giving them information to improve. But what if the person doesn't want to improve? They don't want to change. Then at that point, I think love says, okay, you don't have to. If you want, it's your own learning journey. You can take your time with that, and there's a space for people to choose their own journey, even if they're choosing things that have negative consequences. So I think love does not control people to avoid negative consequences. It more just allows. If you want to, if you want to smoke, if you want to eat bad food, if you want to avoid exercise, just says, okay, you can do that. You'll get the consequences and you'll learn in your own time. And that sort of ties into that compassion. But if someone does ask for help, and they're open to help, then there is a responsibility as a loving person to help these people who want help. So the goal of love is to help people who want help and not help people who don't want help. It's kind of this interesting dichotomy. But if you think about it, that's kind of how you want people to treat you. If someone thinks they know better than you and you disagree, you don't want them coming over here and like putting a knife or a gun to you and say, you have to act this way. You don't want that. So similarly, if you view other people as part of yourself, you want to treat them as you want to be treated. But at the same time, when you want help, you want help. So that's, if you go up to someone, hey, can you help me? I have this big problem. You really do want them to help you, and that's when you want the help. All right, and then another aspect of love is forgiveness, which is, if someone causes a harm, it's trying to repair that harm is how I view forgiveness. So let's say, you make a mistake and you accidentally, hurt someone with some words you said, and you weren't really conscious of what you were saying, but you said some words that kind of hurt someone's feelings. What would it be like to view that as you talk to yourself that way? Could you have some lenience for like, okay, I understand that sometimes I make mistakes, so other people sometimes make mistakes, and we can work past that. We don't have to hold a grudge. We don't have to seek revenge. We can just kind of accept that people make mistakes. And that's kind of how I view forgiveness, and understand that everyone's learning at their own pace. And when you forgive somebody, it's often, most helpful for you to grow and learn, or to find peace even when someone hurts you. And that's kind of ties into that meaning mapping, where you can choose, what does it mean when someone hurts me? And you can redefine it through forgiveness. Forgiveness is, in a sense, a redefinition from you hurt me to maybe you provided an opportunity for me to learn and grow of how to adapt to the situation. And it ties into another aspect of love, which I view as protection. So love seeks to protect. And so you may realize that someone hurts you, maybe there's a way you could set a boundary to prevent people from hurting you, which is, protecting yourself, or protecting others. Say if someone hurts someone else, you may forgive them, but you also may seek out ways to prevent that from happening in the future without controlling people. And that's the trickiest thing, because we said love allows people to make mistakes. But what happens if someone makes a mistake that hurts other people? What does love do then? Like, how do we protect and allow freedom simultaneously? And I think that's a balance. That's why it's not a black and white thing. It's just something we have to experiment with and see what that balance is. So sometimes allowing someone to hurt you or hurt others is a part of that balance, as a way of maybe learning of how to set better boundaries in the future. So if someone hurts someone else, maybe you don't stop that because you want this person to learn forgiveness or learn to protect themselves. But sometimes maybe someone is not capable of protecting themselves. And I think that would be a case where love says, all right, I'm going to step in and protect this person because it's beyond their scope. They couldn't learn how to protect themselves, so it's worth protecting them. But if someone is capable of learning how to protect themselves, it's perhaps loving to not protect them so they can actually get that lesson. But that is tricky. I think that is, because say when you do set boundaries, sometimes it can be, in a sense, controlling, which is like, I'm not letting you do what you want to do. Say someone wants to hurt me, and I set a boundary, I'm kind of preventing them from doing that, which is in a way limiting their freedom. But I think that can be sometimes helpful too to the person so they can learn not to hurt other people. But it's all really complicated. It's a complex world. But as we all seek to understand the meaning of love and apply that in our lives of expanding our identities and learning how to create a more harmonious world together, I think we'll eventually create that world. But the first step is wanting it and defining it and figuring out what does a loving world look like, and we imagine it, and then from there we can then seek to create it. And it may be a long journey, but we can all imagine what would be a loving human race. What would that look like? How would we treat each other? How would we operate? If you imagine if we all had compassion, forgiveness, patience, kindness, appreciation for everyone, what would the world look like? Do you think it'd be better than it is today or worse? And maybe some people don't like these experiences, but I think that these attributes are equivalent to happiness. So a happy person is kind, forgiving, compassionate, empathetic. That is what happiness is. Someone who doesn't have these attributes is likely angry, depressed, anxious. They probably have some attributes in their mind that aren't happiness, which is why they're not kind and forgiving and patient and kind and loving. And I think it ties into the identity thing too. The more you try to identify as a single body and separate from other people, the harder it is to be happy. So the meaning of love, all these things leads to happiness. And I think that's why, the idea of heaven, how do we get to heaven? It's through love, patience, kindness, forgiveness. It's all going to take us there, and we'll be happy all the time if we had those attributes. But thank you for listening. I want you to know that you're loved, and I bid you farewell.